It's a warm summer night in 2009, and I'm ending it the same way I've ended countless, and I mean countless, summer nights. Hunched over a folding table in a trailer parked in the bowels of an amphitheater outside of Boston, tapping on my laptop and nervously eyeing the clock. There's a closed-circuit TV on in the corner, and the sound of steel drums is pouring out of it, the opening bars of Margaritaville. I'm searching my online thesaurus for synonyms for breezy. Sunny, lay back, feel good, lighthearted. I am, of course, writing a review of a Jimmy Buffett concert. It's his 50th at this venue. I can't remember how many of them I've covered, 4, 5, 6. It feels like I've been to all 50, though. Coincidentally, I am about to turn 50. A numerologist would say that this was no coincidence, that 50 represents change and growth and personal freedom, and that all of these 50s were a harbinger of the sea change that was about to upend my life. All I know is something is shifting inside of me. I've loved being a rock critic for a long time. It's an incredible job with ridiculous perks. I've meditated with the Red Hot Chili Peppers, and I've eaten tacos with Lucinda Williams, and I've curled up on a sofa with Madonna. But this night, my eye keeps landing on the antonyms for breezy. Anxious, troubled, vexed. There's something wrong, something is changing, and I don't know what it is. All I know is something is missing. Not long after the Buffett concert, I'm on the phone with my daughter, Hannah, who's a student at Barnard College in New York. And she's telling me that she's thinking about taking some time away from school. She's burnt out and she needs a change. And during one of our conversations under the auspices of brainstorming, her year off becomes our year off. We are so totally pumped about this idea. And we start making a list. We can start a small arts festival. We can become cheesemakers. We can build a cabin. We can write songs and make a record. Hannah ultimately decides to stay in school, but that last idea, write songs and make a record, I can't get it out of my head. When I was young, I dreamed about becoming a musician. I grew up in LA in the 1970s, and I went to an artsy high school. I loved to sing. I was crazy about pop music. My big fantasy was that Donald Fagen from Steely Dan would discover me. Even though I didn't actually play music, he would somehow sense how musical I was. And he would offer to produce my debut record. Then Steely Dan would take me on the road, and you know the story, I become a star. That didn't happen. But I did land an internship at the Seattle Weekly after college, and they gave me a shot writing about music. I've never looked back. I'm certainly not filled with regret over my choices. I am, however, growing older, and as I do, certain things are becoming clearer to me. For instance, the fact that I'm going to die. I don't just know this, I feel it. I feel my mortality. I felt it that night in the suburban amphitheater, searching for new language. And the feeling was even stronger a few months later when I was talking with my daughter about a mother-daughter music project. So when my 50th birthday rolls around, I'm still doing my job, I'm going to shows, I'm filing my stories, but I no longer feel like the luckiest writer in the world. I feel like a kid with her nose pressed up against the glass, frustrated and full of desire. I suppose I could have signed up for guitar lessons, but instead I walk into my editor's office one morning and I quit my job to become a songwriter. Okay, it wasn't quite that impetuous. I agonized for months. I was worried about losing the steady paycheck. I was worried about losing my identity. Who would I be if I wasn't Joan Anderman from the Boston Globe? And what would people think about a middle-aged woman chasing a rock and roll dream? But I was done. I was done being on the outside looking in. For my going away present, the newspaper gave me a microphone, and I packed it in a box with a mountain of reporters' notebooks, and I went home. I spent the next 2 years hiding in my attic with a borrowed guitar and an amplifier that one of my kids' friends left at the house, trying to trying to play bar chords and hoping against hope that all the listening and thinking and writing that I've done about music counts towards my 10,000 hours. I start posting pictures on Facebook of my fingers in various shapes on the guitar neck, waiting for my friends to weigh in and tell me what I'm playing. Radical transparency felt like the only way I could deal with the self-doubt and the self-consciousness. So I start a blog, as one does, and I start posting audio clips of my cringeworthy baby steps. I'm not being self-deprecating. I am a trained professional. This was really, it was bad stuff. But I kept going, and I kept digging, and I kept working very hard to silence the critic inside of me, because I knew that that was the only way I could find the songwriter inside of me. One of my faithful readers, his name is Dan. He was a former colleague of mine from the Boston Globe. He starts leaving really encouraging comments on my blog. And he sends me some of his own songs too, and I love them. Dan invites me to get together with him to play music, and I graciously declined. I had no intention of leaving that attic for a long, long time. It was too loaded, it was too scary. I wasn't at all ready. But Dan was tenacious, and I was getting very sick of myself. I know better than anyone I know as well as anyone, not better than anyone, but as well as anyone, that songs don't exist in a vacuum. Songs belong in the world. So Dan was tenacious, and I finally came out of my attic, and we got together, and we started playing our songs. And the next thing you know, we formed a band, and we are on a tiny stage playing our first show in a dark rock club. Everybody I know is there, and as predicted, it's very loaded and it's very scary. And it's also the most thrilling and joyful thing I've ever done in my life. So, maybe middle age seems like a strange time to kick off a music career, but in my experience, it's actually the perfect time. I don't have stars in my eyes. I'm not trying to make it, not in any conventional sense. Although I will say that reading a review in the Boston Globe of my band Field Day was fabulously surreal. The best part of this whole endeavor, really the mission-critical part of it, is that at my age, I'm far less concerned with what the world expects of me than what I plan to do, in the words of the poet Mary Oliver, with my one wild and precious life. Thank you.